Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome you back to another edition of the Foul Playland. As always, I am Sir Foul Player of Brooklyn. I wanted to make this video regarding Trump's war against Antifa by designating them a terrorist group. And I also wanted to touch on the James Comey indictment. James Comey was the head of the FBI in the beginning of Trump's presidency. And you guys haven't been following the news. He's now been indicted for I don't know what charges. But the before I get to that though, I hope everybody's doing really well. My Mets have been eliminated from playoff contention, so I'm gonna try to make videos more often now that the New York Mets are no longer playing. But the first topic at hand regarding Antifa, a lot of people who are not really, or a lot of people in general are not aware as to what Antifa is. And with people that defend the liberal left or people that defend liberals or liberals themselves, they often try to make it seem as if Antifa is not a big deal. And it's something that, in general, like people that defend the left, they often do when they try to like tamper down like the danger in certain things so long as it doesn't benefit, to be honest, Trump. And I'm no outright defender of Trump. I'm not a conservative as far as, or I'm not a Republican. I'll say that I'm conservative in many by today's standards. But what happens with the liberal left is that they'll try to make it try to get you stuck into one facet of an argument so you kind of like get lost in the weeds. So for instance, they'll say like, well, Antifa doesn't have an actual leader, so how could you go after a group that doesn't have a leader? Like stupid shit like that. Or they'll say that Antifa is not like a real organization, like, and like if they know, I mean, like a lot, and most people, like I said, don't really know about Antifa. I happen to have seen Antifa many times in New York City during the Summer of Love, and even before that, even before 2020, like there was um, the same attire that you would see in all these protests where Antifa goons show up, as far as being blacked out, umbrellas, mask, faces covered. I've been seeing that in New York protests for many years, spurring on violence, mob mentality. So when you describe that and make it seem as if it's something that may not benefit Trump or may not benefit Republicans, people will try to whitewash it to a degree or try to make it seem like it's not a big deal, but it is a big deal. Um, Sorry, I had to close the window. But when you have a cool name like Antifa, and the name is supposed to represent anti-fascist, like people automatically feel as if it's this well-meaning group that just has a beef with fascists. But Antifa, like most of the radicalized liberal left, is behaving like fascists in 2025. If you guys don't know, this is the definition, the Webster's definition. Again, these are wokeified. If you look at an AI definition of fascist, they're gonna say it's a right leaning. Like that's not what it is. Like I mean, like there is no right and left. It's basically but the actual definition is a populist, politicized political philosophy, movement, or regime that exalts nation and race above the individual, and it puts severe economic and social regimentation by forcibly suppression of opposition. Now, again, I consider my life or the life of many Americans under the Biden regime as close to living under a fascist regime. And I'll explain it. Like the mandates, I'll always revert back to it. There were a lot of people in the liberal left that thought that people that don't get the jab should be in camps. They should lose their work. Jimmy Kimmel, that moron who was taken down by his own network and then reinstated days later, he was in one of his monologues joking about people that didn't want to take the jab and saying that they shouldn't that if they're that they shouldn't be allowed to like utilize medical facilities, that those should be reserved for people who were willing to take the jab. Now, again, I mean, if you guys have been living under a rock, the jab is the holy sacrament of the liberal left while it was happening. I mean, they don't want to talk about that stuff now, and I always try to bring that up more and more because of the lunacy that we were living under in 2021 under the Biden administration, and it's not just in America. I mean, like you look at New Zealand, just Lucinda, whatever her name is, I think it's Lucinda Ardern, and her being a totalitarian tyrant, basically forcing people to take the jab. That was happening in Australia, many other countries as well, in which if you didn't take the jab, they basically came crashing down upon your life. I mean, you could lose your job. In Australia, they were arresting people, sequestering them in camps for not wanting to take the jab. Again, where like people's arguments against that are like, now in 2025, people that defend liberals or people that defend the left will say, "Oh, well, that wasn't a big deal. You want to compare like, like mandates, or you want to compare taking the vax to like third world Hitler?" Like, no, like it's a encroachment upon my life and your life, where somebody feels that they have the authority to make you put something into your body. Now, the liberal left during that time was acting like fascists. They were the every commercial during that time had to do with Pfizer and pushing that stupid jab. Um, all the celebrities were lining up and telling you to take it, and all the corporate entities, TV networks, what have you, they were hand in hand. I mean, and the government itself, like under the Joe Biden administration. I mean, Joe Biden said that the vaccine is safe and effective, and all you need to do is take it once, and you're done with it. We all know that now that that's a lie. Like that, in order for it to be safe and effective, according to them, you had to take boosters and you had to take more than multiple shots. So the media, the radicalized liberal left, including Antifa. I mean, like, didn't see Antifa riffing about like people having to take vaccines forcibly, whether that be through mandates. And again, these are things that I don't want to debate as far as getting into the definition, because I brought these topics up, and how you doing, Fungus Edits, and you'll get the weasel word. Oh, well, they didn't force you to take it. Oh, you could have got around it, or like, oh, you weren't censored, which is not the case. I mean, or like, I don't like to get into the weasel word definitions of things, especially with people that defend leftist talking points, because it's basically a tactic to distract you from, what you read, what the real issues are. And liberal left people only have one compass, and it's basically how to inconvenience. What if Trump is losing, then we're winning. And I just in all honesty, like it's hard to converse with people like that and waste time in trying to define words. Oh, that's not what a fascist is. Like, no. But again, you had the media, the government, the corporations, um, entertainment industry walking hand in hand with the same message and telling you, like, this was safe and effective. To me, that's more of a version of fascism than anything that Trump is being accused of. And again, political talk in this country has gone into like what like the only barometer people use is whether you like Trump or don't like Trump. So I kind of like more do this as a messaging to the people who could only discuss things based on like their hating of Trump. You know, it's not like I'm over here like Trump love fest either. But as far as Antifa, the organization, you know, when I've seen many content creators that try to, you know, get footage of Antifa, and you know they'll get their asses kicked. You know, I see a lot of people that um, show up to places where Antifa is, and if they Antifa that is feels that these people that are there don't represent their interests, I mean, they'll break your windows, they'll break your face. I was just watching a content creator called Nick Shirley. He's a young guy. Guys could subscribe to him too. He just uploaded a video that he must have shot over the weekend, and it was in Portland outside of an ICE facility. In that video, they Antifa that is identified him for being a content creator, and his content is pretty much you know just documenting stuff really. But if you document uh, liberals in a negative light, then liberals feel that that's equates violence. Anything that doesn't benefit liberals, they translate into that's violence. So words of violence, you know, like so they use that as a justification so that they themselves can use violence against anything that they don't agree with. You follow? Like, so I mean, like, if you don't agree with the liberal left, automatically you're deemed a fascist. There was actually in the Nick Shirley video that I was just watching, which again was in outside of a ICE facility in Portland, Oregon, and there was many demonstrators, many members of what looked like Antifa. Again, the black uniforms, umbrellas, surrounding people that they didn't agree with, bumping into people. Like he got egg cracked on his head. He was pushed several times. They were threatening to take his equipment. But one of the interesting things that I've seen, and again, myself being a quote unquote minority, um, I've received this treatment myself in the times in recent history where I didn't want Kamala Harris or Joe Biden to win the 2024 election. I was deemed as a sellout at times by like white people, like white, like I mean, and this is online because I mean a lot like nobody's really gonna talk froggy to me like that in a regular conversation. But you have people that are straight up like lily white, like calling me a Puerto Rican dude from New York from the hood sellout based on who I didn't want to win the election. Again, I don't vote, so I mean like it's not um, my my not it's not that important to me like it is to others. Thank you for subbing as well, Fungus Edits. But going back to that Nick Shirley video, there was a larger black man that showed up, and he had a Patriot hoodie on for the team, New England Patriots, and he had a "Make America Great" hat and a large American flag. And he posted up, and he was surrounded. I mean, but again, like Antifa, for the most part, if you look at them, a lot of them are Weasley, autistic, a lot of times trannies, not big people, like for the most part, where you could probably take on like three or four of them, but they only get ahead or win skirmishes by conducting like mob violence, surrounding you with a lot of people, or using weaponry, hitting you from behind. But this person in the Nick Shirley video, he was a bigger dude, um, and they still surrounded him. But I guess they didn't want the bad PR of having to attack a black man or African American man, even though he was a patriot. Again, he had a MAGA hat on. American flag, a Patriots jersey, but they didn't want. They I guess they had a fork in the road moment, so they didn't. I guess they leaned off of conducting violence against him directly, but they were calling him a sellout, and or like basically making it like saying like that because he's an African American, um, him being there with the American flag made him a sellout. And again, I mean, like, these are by and large, you know, liberal white people. And this is the whitest of the white, like no sun receiving, like always covered up, autistic, you know, room dwelling, stinky. Uh, but they, again, and I've received the same kind of treatment in which liberals to win at every step that you're some sort of sellout to your nationality, you know, which is hilarious. But as far as Trump deeming them a domestic, and I think officially he said that they were a major terrorist group, um, but Trump has deemed them as a major terrorist group, and it seems as if, according to him, he wants to go after the people that fund Antifa as well. There's been rumors in the past about these dark groups that fund these anti-American organizations, and Antifa is entirely anti-American. Bullies, mob tyrant like assholes. But Trump supposedly wants to go after their funding as well. There's been rumors in the past, and I've heard it mentioned many times that George Soros is a funder of Antifa. Whether that's true or not, again, I don't want to get lost in the weeds of that conversation because I don't have paper proof. And somebody who defends liberals like will say, oh well, you can't pull it up on the internet. So no, I don't want to get lost in that. Bye. I have to go, but I will come back later. Nah, definitely Fungus Edits, and thank you for coming through. Glad that you commented. I usually don't get many people that comment on these live streams. Nevertheless, thank you for coming through. But now Trump is designating Antifa as a terror group, and I'm glad that this is happening. The radical liberal left has almost baked into the American psyche and throughout the world that they could conduct violence, and that again, since they're fighting against what they consider, you know, um, fascist or racist, then they're they sort of get a pass in a sense, and I've seen that in New York. I mean, like, if like right when you get off the Brooklyn Bridge by City Hall, there's a lot of old buildings right outside of City Hall, um, and these buildings have these beautiful like statues with like Indians and colonial looking, like, old people. And during the summer of love in 2020, and you got to drive by this area. There's no avoiding it. The only way to get onto the Brooklyn Bridge is by going. I think it's Reed Street, if I Reed Street and Broadway. But it's the only access you have to the Brooklyn Bridge. And during the summer of love, those people were tearing up everything in that area. By everything near City Hall. They painted the statues in black. Pretty much destroying a lot of that stuff. Graffiti all over the place. Like, and this area used to be immaculate. It's a beautiful area of New York City, and they pretty much destroyed it. Whereas, how often do we hear people reminding us of all the terror that the right wing establishment, or not the right, or right wingers, quote unquote, caused on January 6th. I mean, January 6th to me is like a cakewalk compared to what's happening in Portland right now. I mean, and what's happening in Portland outside of these ICE facilities, it's not like thousands and thousands of people like there were outside of the Capitol on January 6th. And again, those thousands and thousands of people that were outside of the Capitol on January 6th weren't doing anything illegal. The people that did something illegal were the ones that entered into the building and destroyed stuff. But even the people that entered the building, if you want to include the people that entered the building along with the ones that destroyed stuff, because there were people that just meandered into the Capitol and did nothing, they were just recording videos and thought it was cool. But there were other people that were obviously destroying stuff and assaulting officers. But if you total both those groups together, the nonviolent ones that enter into the Capitol and the violent ones that enter the Capitol, you're probably talking maybe 200-300 people. Um, and you had a lot of people that were outside of the Capitol that were opposed to what these people that were vandalizing that facility were doing. Like if all right wingers are these violent people, every one of those people, or like even if a quarter of the people that were outside of the Capitol on that cold day of January 6th entered the Capitol, you probably couldn't even fit them all. But most people leaned back. And again, we're also on the heels of a weekend in which it was exposed that the FBI and that's one organization on its own, that the FBI may have had upwards of 275 officers or undercover assets with the crowd. I mean, and a lot of people in the right have alleged that there was a lot of people inciting the events of January 6th that were not really like MAGA people, that they were just there in an effort to incite the crowd into a frenzy. And with that, the crowd didn't really go into a frenzy to the effect how the liberals want to paint it. One popular name, Ray Epps, even though he's not an FBI agent, but there was many instances of him on video trying to organize people to go into the Capitol on January 6th. The day before the events actually took place, you actually had the first breach of January 6th with a young man. I don't know who he is, but Ray Epps actually whispered something into that young man's ear. And after the young man knocked down a barricade and entered into the Capitol facilities on January 6th, Ray Epps was walking right alongside him. And Ray Epps was never charged. He was actually on the FBI's wanted list after the events of January 6th, but I guess they dropped their pursuit of him and he was never charged. And you had people that entered into the building in January 6th that were giving a year's worth of jail time, a lot of times with no sentencing. And again, what this is, if you look at the total number of people that entered into the Capitol on January 6th, you're talking about maybe a handful, a couple hundred at most. But right now, outside of, thank you for coming back too, Fungus Edits. Right now, outside of the facilities in Illinois, near the Chicago area, you have people trying to hinder the operations that are happening by outside of the ICE facility in Portland, outside of the ICE facility in Illinois, using violence. Again, like I said, Nick Shirley was just doing a video there. He was pushed, he was punched, he had an egg cracked over his head. But the liberal left generally gets a pass when they conduct violence because a lot of people mistake their intentions. The liberal left does not care about minorities that are not in accordance with them. And for the most part, and this is before Antifa, I've been dealing with the liberal left since at least 2005, 2006, in New York City, mind you. And those people had Latin man, they would try to shout down like, oh well, you don't know what the hell you're talking about because you're a man. Like they would that was my first signs of seeing how the liberal left was operating, in that they wanted to create divides rather than especially if you weren't in accordance with everything that they were pushing. Like a lot of the men that they wanted there were like these pussified, weak ass dudes, and you still get that today. Again, they don't need strong men when you have a mob, and the only way they operate is by moving like a mob. And a lot of people, don't really take that as a threat, you know. And there's talks of Trump sending the military to assist in ICE operations, and it's basically to protect ICE agents at these facilities, because it's necessary. At any point, this mob could rise up, and a lot of these ICE facilities, it's not like they have thousands and thousands of people helping out with their everyday day to day operations. It's even the ones that are coming out to deal with these crowds. The people that they're sending out to deal with the crowds, you're probably talking maybe 20, 30 people like in military gear. But if those crowds wanted to raise up on them, they could easily overtake, these ICE agents. And again, if it were a right wing cause that was trying to inhibit, any sort of government operation, whether that I'll go back to the 2020 COVID scenario. If there were right wingers that were inhibiting a facility that was giving COVID shots out, and if there were a right wing cause that were inhibiting that, it would be national news. Same thing, and it's the same with abortion clinics. Everybody always makes a fuss about Christians at times posting up outside of an abortion clinic, but there's a lot of evidence of those people getting beat up by liberal lunatics. And when that happens, nobody's really shedding a tear for them. Like, for like a Christian who gets his ass kicked outside of a abortion facility, it's like, oh well, it is what it is. Or like, um, well, like they like, as long as it's not one of their own, like, getting their shit caved in. Like, they pretty much applaud violence that happens against people that they consider conservatives, or who they consider to be opposed to their cause. And it's a bunch of BS where the political process in America and in a lot of these Western nations has one side that's basically allowed to conduct in a form of violence, and another crowd where if anything they do, like conservatives, is considered violence, and people look past actual violence just because the liberal left is conducting it. But now we have actual measures that are taking place. I think Trump mentioned in 2020 that he wanted to designate Antifa as a terrorist organization, and it really didn't resonate. And he was already out on his way out the door at that stage. But now in 2025, it's out with these ICE operations. You are seeing some of the liberal left purposely inhibiting, striking officers, and Trump knows that this Antifa issue could be something that's used in a much more negative way. Here shortly. He's in the beginning of his second presidency, and to have an organization that's well funded. You look at how they dressed. They all dress in all black cargo pants, these expensive gas masks. They all have the same goggles, all new equipment, all new signs. Um, they have legal funds, people, lawyers that are observing them as they operate, and it helps them get out of any sort of prison sentence if they do get in trouble. But you have this dark network that's kind of been causing a lot of discord and chaos in America. And I wouldn't put it past like these groups like an Antifa to do something far more nefarious than simply inhibiting a ICE facility. You know, these people don't love most of the things that everybody else loves. You know, they are opposed to the family structure, to the family unit. They're opposed to, you know, if they don't, they feel that the only way one should exist in America is basically crying about some brown person in some other land 100% of the time. You know, you have to be like in some sort of guilt driven existence 24/7 because somebody is suffering, you know, somewhere. You know, they don't care about bums that are suffering in Portland, you know, and a lot of times these are bums that are black and Latin. They could give two shits, you know, besides a little lip service. Like, I mean, like most of these liberal leftoids try to avoid, you know, dark people or brown people at every turn. You know, they don't like the or in places like where I'm from in New York City, I mean, you have tons of homeless people that were already suffering, and you know, the liberal left thinks that it's a dignified cause to bring in people from other countries to pile into the ghettos that minorities who were or so-called minorities who are already born in America are already living in the streets and living under rent crisis. You know, they'll rather talk about the rent crisis and trying to rectify that rather than trying to make life easier on so-called minorities who've been suffering, you know, in perpetuity, pretty much. You know, but again, I mean, if it's basically the flavor of the month as to what cause they rock with, and if you don't submit to every nook and cranny of what they're pushing, they basically consider you an enemy. They're it's almost like the most radicalized religion on earth right now is leftist liberalism, you know, or far left is the most radicalized religion in the world in 2025. You know, the one thing they lack is of God, and funnily enough, most of them are atheists. But they pretty much, if you could bring on the most radical of Muslims, and I mean, like, you know, they'll probably get pissed if you know, if a woman were to wear a burqa with a piece of hair stranded out. I mean, one of them may get like pissed off. And there's nothing against Muslims. I have much love for a lot of friends that I have that are Muslim. I'm just using it as what people consider within the Muslim community. There are pockets of radicalized Muslims that may look at somebody who's or a woman wearing a burqa with a piece of hair coming out as like a whore or something. Well, you get the same thing with the radical left. I mean, if you feel that a man who's cosplaying as a woman, you know, and is wearing the costume of a woman, and if you don't label that man cosplaying as a woman, in spite of the fact that he may have a beard, that he may be bigger than any woman that you've ever seen in your life, but if you don't go against your own intuition and refer to that man who's cosplaying as a woman as anything but lady, Mrs., or a ma'am, you know, they'll want to kick your ass, you know. So we don't you know, and you get a lot of that from the radical left as is, but when you have a group like an Antifa who not only conducts in the lunacy of leftist ideology, but also is willing to conduct violence against people that don't agree with them, you know, it's a problem. And I'm glad that Trump is looking at them for what they are, terrorists. Also, too, you gotta think that if these people assemble themselves to conduct a real terrorist actions, i.e., like, you know, trying to poison like some sort of water facility or taking down power lines or something, far more worse than what they're taking up to now. You don't want to give these people the ability to, you know, evolve into far worse activities, especially here in America. So I'm glad that this is going down, and the Antifa seems to get a lot of good PR, especially now that Trump is in opposition or has his eyes um, aimed at the Antifa terrorist group. But every story you look up on TV, it's basically like, providing cover, like, or trying to change the definition of what Antifa is. They'll say that they're loosely associated, that they're decentralized. So how could Trump go after a group or designate a group that's decentralized? Or it, let Trump worry about that. But look more into the fact of whether these people conduct violence or if they don't. And I mean, if you don't think that Antifa is engaged in much of the political violence that happens in this country, then I mean, you should start doing research on that rather than trying to redefine what fascists are, what anti fascists are, what women are, what a vaccine is. But um, glad this is happening. I'm glad he's going after the people that are funding this too. I mean, you have rumors of people that are financing these anti-American groups and causes in America. And right now, America doesn't need a more headaches by way of dark money pouring into groups like Antifa and pouring into these groups that are nefarious characters in America. I rather one thing I do like about this presidency is that a lot of things are being revealed to America. I mean, like, what the Times are also doing that in itself. Like when you get the unfortunate assassination of Charlie Kirk, I mean, a lot of people looked at the liberal left as if they were dovish and, not willing to participate in, you know, political assassinations like they just did. But it's sort of like a wake up call to the country at large of what the radical left is capable of. So I'm glad that unfortunately it takes stuff like that to happen. But the one good thing is that the American people and the world throughout are seeing who the real violent people are in this world today. Want to talk about also the James Comey indictment with Trump ordering that Pam Bondi or his Department of Justice bring this indictment forward. I think much of the case is based on the fact that James Comey lied about uh, leaking the Russiagate story out to the media. And James Comey, I mean, sorry, I'm trying to bite a cuticle off. But James Comey has been this shady character in politics for a while. I mean, I'm going back because I was absent from watching domestic politics from like 2015 to like 2018, and it's because I was going through stuff on a personal level, like moving from Brooklyn, buying a house. My dad died, a bunch of stuff. So I mean, I wasn't really engaged or researching a lot of the political happenings during that time. But I'm doing a lot more of that stuff now and in the aftermath. But James Comey was a shady character um, during that initial period of the Trump presidency. He basically brought the fake Russia story and used it, leaked it out to the public. Also used that fake Russia story, which, according to what we know now, is that it was financed by the DNC and the lady who was running against Trump at that time, whose name I won't mention. But him, James Comey, knowing that that story was bogus as far as Russia colluding into the election and Russia basically having a hold over Trump, still utilized that fake paid for by the DNC story in order to get warrants on Trump and people talking to Trump. And again, I mean, people will look past that based on the fact that they hate Trump, but that's a severely big deal. I mean, picture Trump doing that or anybody doing that with to a Obama presidency and how crazy things would have gotten in this country had that revelation been made. Um, Trump always in a like as far as with going back with these stories in regards to Russiagate and spying on Trump. Trump always lays a lot of that blame onto Obama, in that he thinks that Obama was the one that authorized a lot of this spying on Donald Trump when he was a political candidate and also when he was a president. Um, I guess hopefully like these things are revealed to us soon too. But I operate on the theory that um, the political establishment, the media establishment, everything sold out or drastically changed their way and were willing to operate in shady capacities against Trump. You know, I was talking to my son about this yesterday and how much of the world has changed to basically go after Trump. You know, like the medical establishment, when it came to COVID, it was basically looked at as if you weren't willing to take the jab, then you were pro Trump, lunatic, conspiracy guy. And a lot of that drove people to either take the jab or also deem people who weren't willing to take the jab as like some sort of enemy. But you also have that with the entertainment industry. How bad did the entertainment industry get like in the last 10 years, like, you know, in an effort to unconservative eyes themselves, you know, like how many times you see rainbow characters in pretty much every show, although like I mean rainbow characters aren't everywhere present in your everyday life, especially if you don't live in a city, and most people in America don't live in cities. um but a lot of people, I mean, and I remember what being able like HBO always had at least one really good show that, you know, you could be interested in, like Oz, Sopranos, um Boardwalk Empire, Game of Thrones. But they've tied themselves into proverbial knots because they wanted to push some sort of left wing agenda, and it basically turned people off from watching TV as a whole. How often do you hear somebody coming into your job and saying, "Oh well, did you see last night's episode of whatever show?" Like nobody does that. I mean, when I was a kid, people would do that about late night talk shows. You know, like kids that were like young kids like myself, like would often talk about what happened that weekend on Saturday Night Live. They would talk about whether a good musical guest that they liked would go on to, you know, the Dave Letterman like late night show. You know, you don't have anybody about that now. Nobody's interested in anything that the entertainment industry is offering because the entertainment industry, along with the medical industry, along with much of the politics in this country, basically leaned into, if it has anything to do with Trump, then I'm going to do everything in my power to oppose that view. And James Comey, who I would consider a bureaucrat or a, you know, someone aligned with politics or a politician himself, you know, he also took that same one of these same measures. You know, if in leaking these negative Trump stories to the media, um, wiretapping people that were in the Trump sphere, and he was free to conduct his business all these years. and a lot of people didn't think that he did anything wrong because he wasn't tried for anything. I mean, you know, but now, I mean, Trump's again in the early stages of his second term, and he's going after some of these bad characters like Andrew McCabe, like James Comey, um, bringing light to a lot of the stuff that happened during the zombie administration of Joe Biden. Again, Joe Biden doesn't have a capable aspect to his brain, one iota, and a lot of the liberal left were acting like they were looking past the obvious mental decline that Joe Biden was suffering through. Uh, a lot of the liberal left didn't see a problem with a fake Russia story in regards to Trump, so long as it affected Trump negatively. And a lot of the liberal left are in 2025 losing a lot of the clout and the power that they once held over America and over the world because we're getting sick of them. I mean, I've been sick of them, and I was myself more liberal than most anybody I knew. I could care less if gay people got married. At once, I thought, once upon a time, I thought that gay people or gay men should be able to adopt kids. I don't feel that way now. Um, I anti-war. I think, at least I used to think that healthcare should be free, but now I don't feel that way because there's too many people in this country that were allowed into the country. Um, but I myself, and I've always have been involved with things that are considered more liberal, i.e., like the art in the art world. Still involved in the art world, in the music world. Um, However, I mean, I just couldn't tolerate what the left has become, and I think most Americans are slowly coming to the same realization that I came onto in these past couple of years. The radical left in this country needs to be looked at with a magnifying glass, but the violent elements of the radical left, like Antifa, should be taken apart. They have no purpose in this country, and people like James Comey, who I don't think are legitimately radicalized leftists or I just think that they're these ratty creatures who went after a politician because he wasn't a typical politician in Donald Trump. But with that, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. I gotta start doing some laundry and wallow in tears for my beloved New York Mets no longer playing until next year. But I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your evening. I'm gonna try to come on far more frequently now that the Mets are no longer playing. But I wish you guys a wonderful rest of your night. Rest of your night. Sorry. With that, Fungus Edits, thank you for coming through. I'm gonna subscribe to you too. Let me see. Yeah, I'll make sure I'm gonna actually write that name because I can't reach it now. But I want to thank Fungus Edits for coming through and commenting. I really wish that a lot of people that did come and observe my channel commented, but do help me by like, sharing, subscribing. As always, I am Sir Fa Player of Brooklyn, New York City. With that, I wish you guys a wonderful rest of your evening. I'm out. Peace.